The gloom that hangs over the mysterious disappearances we're forced to face amidst a darkness that claims our own. A darkness that swallows them whole, leaving nothing but haunting echoes, uncertainty, and grief in the shape of people. Number 10. The first bit of fabric woven into the tapestry of terror came in 2023, taking the form of Erica Ives. Born to Joy Mason in Palestine, Texas, she would become one of 3 children, the middle child of her siblings. By the time she was 46 years old, she had a teenage daughter. Erica was known to temporarily live in several different locations, one of which used to be her ex-boyfriend's house. At first, the relationship seemed to be everything she could have wanted, but things turned cold, and a bitter end to the relationship came that very year. It was the 10th of July when Erica left her friend's home in Conroe, Texas. She planned on heading to her previous home, her ex-boyfriend's residence on Broadway Avenue, where she would retrieve some of her belongings, given that they were no longer together. According to reports, Erica was last seen leaving her friend's house on the 10th, but a conflicting report claims that she was sighted at a Valero Iffy Mart between July 16th and 17th. Regardless, it would take several days before anyone would realize that something was amiss, and on the 7th of August, her mother would finally report her missing to the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. A missing person alert was subsequently issued, appealing to the public for any information, in the hope that someone might have seen something. Whether or not a search was conducted of the surrounding area of Erica's ex-boyfriend's house remains unclear. In fact, it's uncertain if any thorough investigation aside from an alert was carried out at all. When the Palestine Herald Press began to investigate the strange story for themselves, they discovered something bizarre. They interviewed one of the missing woman's friends, Angela Moore, who revealed the odd detail. After Erica's abrupt disappearance, her vehicle, which she didn't have at the time that she went missing, was allegedly involved in a high-speed police chase. The driver, of course, was someone else. The individual was a man named Brandon Haynes, and he was subsequently arrested once police caught up to him. This individual's relationship to Erica is unknown. Another man, Domingo Rios, whose connection to the missing woman is also unclear, allegedly claimed that she was no longer alive. Following this statement, though, Erica was reportedly seen alive at Iffy Mart, located on Highway 242 in Conroe. Strangely, the details present in this case haven't been correctly or thoroughly distributed to the public, but rather came from the claims of family and friends. Further adding to the ominous details of this already sinister disappearance was that Erica's purse and wallet were discovered outside of the trailer where she'd been living. In 2023, a YouTube channel dedicated to the search for the missing woman was created. It's titled Justice for Erica Ives and offers just 3 video clips that run for just over 6 minutes, as well as 3 additional shorts. Each 6-minute-long video seems to reveal a phone conversation taking place between Erica's friends and family and an unidentified caller. In one video, several names are mentioned, including Orion Trahan, Chris McClelland, Domingo Rios, Shelley Otto, and Cole Clark. The connection between these individuals and Erica is unclear, but they all knew one another. The 3 shorts videos suggests a more distressing narrative, where a friend is heard interrogating Chris regarding red stains on a carpet and a dress that was allegedly hidden in a children's toy box. Talk of the missing woman no longer being alive sent chills coursing through their family, but even if she was deceased, her remains have been left undiscovered. The circumstances leading up to the vanishing are still shrouded in an unyielding fog. Number 9. Adding to the quilt of questions is the one that asks, what happened to Corey Daniely? A query that comes after an uncharacteristic event that left a family questioning what they truly knew about their loved one. Red sweatpants, Nike shoes, and no shirt. These are the last known details that were provided before the 33-year-old mysteriously disappeared one early morning in 2023. It would be just one of those details that the family found particularly out of place. Corey's disappearance begins in the 2500 block of South Bishop Avenue in Fresno County, California. It was the 7th of August, 2023, his 33rd birthday, when he and a party attendee got into an argument. The nature of what the conflict was about was never determined, but whatever it was, it prompted him to leave angrily and without a shirt on. His mother believes that this particular aspect of the case makes her suspicious. She believes that he would never have left the residence with no shirt on. According to witnesses, though, this is allegedly what had taken place. After this, Corey isn't seen or heard from again. His unfamiliarity with the area made getting lost that much easier. Some, though, don't believe that getting lost is what took place here. Suspicion of the nature of this mystery only deepened when Corey failed to show up to a gig that was scheduled in California on the 11th of August. Corey was a musician in the San Francisco Bay Area when he disappeared. He performed with his band under the name Crumb Dread. This band was his second top priority, and when he failed to show up for practices and the gig, alarm bells rang through the minds of all who knew him. His first priority was his 1-year-old son, whom he would never have left behind. According to his mother, Corey maintained regular contact with all of his immediate family members. Not doing so only confirmed that something was very wrong. At the time that he went missing, Corey was living in Santa Rosa, California with a roommate who hasn't had contact with the missing man either. Authorities agree that suspicious circumstances are undoubtedly present within this sinister case, but they have no leads or evidence to follow up with. What would help the investigation along is if anyone who knew something would come forward. There were several people at the party that fateful day, and someone must have seen something. Only one suspect has been named in the case, a man who was once Corey's friend. His name was Zach Stiles. Whether or not he was the individual that the missing man had gotten into an altercation with remains unknown, but there are a few eerie details though, and they don't aid Zach's defense. Allegedly, he was at the party, and for reasons unknown, he had Corey's mobile phone, but refused to turn it in, even upon request. In the end, all efforts to figure out what happened to Corey have proved futile. Number 8. He wouldn't leave his son. The words spoken by a mother who's been in desperate search for answers when it comes to the case of her own son, Derek Anthony Windler. It was the 27th of August, 2023, when the 38-year-old was last seen in Crystal River, Florida. Just the evening before, he'd spoken to his mother on the phone, saying that he was home and enjoying some music. According to her, all seemed fine with Derek. It wouldn't be until the following morning that the warnings would echo through her mind. On the 28th of August, Derek's girlfriend made contact with Deb Evans, her partner's mother. She explained that the two had been engaged in a 5-hour-long argument over text message, and at some point he stopped responding. When she headed over to his house, she discovered that he wasn't there. Her call to Deb was an inquiry, asking if she'd seen him or knew where he was. The answer to those questions was a daunting no. Deb had not spoken to her son for about a day, but she wished she had. Derek's last message to his mother came at 3:30 a.m. on the 27th, and he also texted another individual at the same time. After this, no one would hear from him again. A few days later, with no contact from Derek, the family decided to report him missing, and the hunt was on. It didn't take long for law enforcement to arrive at the first clue. It was Derek's vehicle, a black 2005 GMC Sierra pickup with a number plate PIE E54, which was seen heading south on US 19 at 3:30 a.m. The vehicle was photographed by license plate readers at this time, revealing that the truck's bed was empty. But when the vehicle pops up on the plate readers again, this time at 6:45, the bed has several items packed tightly together. One of those items was his dirt bike. The only thing that this clue was able to confirm was that someone was driving Derek's truck, heading south, and with several of the man's items on the back. Law enforcement wasn't able to confirm who was driving, only that it was the missing man's vehicle. A week went by with no new leads surfacing until a sinister discovery was made. Again, it was the Sierra pickup, and this time it was found abandoned near a homeless camp located near Homosassa Trail in Florida. The bed of the truck still held most of Derek's belongings, with only a few items missing. Among those items were a dash camera, a tent, a laptop, a large white claw umbrella, a Bluetooth speaker, and his son's blue mini bike. Unfortunately, Derek was still missing. Some family members believe that he may have fallen down the slippery slope of narcotics, but his mother maintains that he would never have left his son behind, nor would he have stopped communicating with her. Instead, Deb has suggested foul play, a possibility that the police have explored. The case is ongoing and active, but over the past 2 years, no new developments have been reported. Number 7. When the name Kelly Gravitt was mentioned to police officers, they froze in place. The name sounded familiar. They'd heard it at some point in their lifetime. This is because Kelly was a member of the 82nd Airborne Division, a United States Army combat veteran, and the recipient of a Purple Heart, one of the most prestigious and respected medals a military member can receive. The awarding of such a medal indicated that the receiver had made a great sacrifice during their time of service. Sometimes it's a limb, an eye, or their own life that pays the price. In the case of Kelly, his sacrifice at the expense of the Afghanistan war was a traumatic brain injury that occurred in 2010. Authorities of the Hawaii Police Department were left unnerved when they found his name accompanying a missing person report. Kelly's story begins in 2023 when he was initially said to have gone missing on the 12th of May in Pahoa. The 34-year-old was last seen at the Black Lava Vape, located at the Punakai Shopping Center. The last sighting was in the 15,000 block of Pahoa Village Road. When no one had made contact with him or seen him for some time, Kelly was subsequently reported missing. Later, though, a witness would tell the investigators that he'd seen the veteran on the evening of the 19th. He's said to have been in the same area as before and was also spotted in Kauhale Street in the downtown area, a mile from the shopping center. Kelly was known to hang out with the crowd outside of Pahoa. Specifically, he would meet up with them on Kahena Black Sand Beach, 13 miles away from his home. He would attend the open mic night and play the didgeridoo at La Hiki-Ola Kava Bar. Kelly often expressed how much he loved the company of the Pahoa community. He felt as though they were his people. Despite his known feelings towards the community, after hearing of his sudden disappearance, no one would offer sufficient information to the police that would help track him down. Instead, they remained silent, leaving Kelly's disappearance cloaked in mystery. Aside from the witnesses who'd last seen him in these areas, the only other person to come forward with information was the missing man's father, who'd been left heartbroken by the ordeal. The distraught father explained that his son had alleged that he'd been targeted and attacked by a biker gang known to Pahoa. Supposedly, this event had just taken place weeks before Kelly enigmatically vanished. Since then, his father has come up with several theories, most of which are based on the rumors he heard around town. Hundreds of stories arose about a homicide or being thrown out of a lava tube. There are so many stories that family, friends, and investigators aren't sure which rabbit hole they should delve into. The truth lies down one of those tunnels, which they can only access if they have more information, but no one is saying anything. The veteran's story continues to circulate on social media platforms, across pages and posts that are dedicated to finding it. Kelly's case is just one of 25 people who go missing on the island each year, suggesting something a lot more sinister may be going on there. Number 6. Jahnay Bryan had a promising future ahead of her. For a few years, she'd been attending Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. In 2023, she would graduate from college, and soon after that, she decided to move back home to East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, where she would live with her mother. In the months to follow, though, Jahnay's life began to take a seriously strange turn. She began to cut off all contact with the rest of her family. Relatives weren't the only ones facing this purge. She was also actively stopping communication with her friends, some of whom she had known since childhood. The sudden change in personality was uncharacteristic of the young woman, and her family couldn't help but grow increasingly concerned as the days went by. In early 2024, Jahnay would cut ties with her last immediate family member. She'd sent an email to her sister, wishing her well, and that was the last time that any of them would hear from her. In April of that year, her sister's concern only worsened. She believed that something was wrong and was worried about her well-being. She ultimately made the decision to contact the police to perform a wellness check at Jahnay's home, where she was still living with her mother. It's unknown as to what came of this wellness check, but no alerts were raised, indicating that Jahnay was still alive and well. The months began to drift by as the woman's family held on to the hope that she would make contact with them, or at least offer some closure. The next time anyone would hear from Jahnay would be the 1st of August when she emailed her ex-boyfriend. She suggested to him that she was moving to another city. Things went quiet again until the 16th of October when she emailed her ex-boyfriend again. This time, she told him that they should get married and work in the industry. She emailed him again that same day, saying, "I was just in contact with the commissioner of the Department of Water Management in a city." Her Outlook email suggested she was in California when she sent these messages, but after that day, no one would hear from Jahnay again. On the 13th of November, 2024, her sister headed to the Los Angeles Police Department and reported her missing. A few days later, they would issue an alert for Jahnay Bryan, claiming she was last seen near the 2000 block of West and 8th Street on the 16th of October around 9 a.m. Investigators believe that she was living in the West Lake District at the time, located in central Los Angeles, California. When they headed to the neighborhood, several witnesses confirmed seeing her there and described her accurately, but none of them could say where she went after October. They hadn't seen her either. It became clear that something strange had taken place, which ultimately led to the woman's disappearance. Police don't know what to make of the information they've been provided with. Jahnay's departure doesn't scream foul play, but it still echoes something sinister. Number 5. It was October of 2024 when 9-month pregnant Emma Baum headed to her boyfriend, Antoine Butler's home. Emma was living in Portage, Indiana, while Antoine took up residence 10 miles away. It was at this stage that the young mother of 3, soon to be 4, was having trouble with her cell phone. Her boyfriend was supposed to go with her to the phone store to get her phone activated. The 25-year-old, though, would never fix her phone, and instead, she vanished. Emma, who was just days away from giving birth, headed off to Antoine's on the 10th of October, which is when her family last had contact with her. Days went by before relatives began to realize that something was wrong. They each began to exchange messages with one another, each asking if the other had seen her, but no one had. It wasn't necessarily out of the ordinary that she had headed off, as she was known to do her own thing on occasion, but her lack of communication raised some red flags. She would never have been silent, nor would she have abandoned her children, with whom she was said to have an unbreakable bond. The family became convinced that something sinister may have taken place. A few more days went by as everyone tried to make sense of the situation, hoping that Emma would pop up with her newborn in tow. By the 28th, though, it was clear that this wouldn't be happening. A surge of panic prompted the family to visit the Gary Police Department and relay the urgency of the situation. Realizing that something truly unnerving had occurred, the officers immediately began an investigation that included several searches, canine units, and the Lake County Sheriff's Department. Together, they headed to a house, an apartment, and one other property as they searched for Emma. They also searched several recreational vehicles, only to come up empty-handed. Investigators also turned their attention to Antoine, who was supposedly the last person to have had contact with the missing woman, but they found no evidence to connect him to the case. Instead, he would be arrested on unrelated charges, only adding to an already lengthy criminal record. Emma's mother, despite the lack of evidence, remains highly suspicious of Antoine, who she believes is hiding something crucial. The 29-year-old has had several run-ins with the law, starting in 2019, when he was accused of battery and later pleaded guilty to neglect of a dependent charge. In 2024, he'd be found in possession of a controlled substance, and in 2025 he was arrested again and pleaded guilty to resisting law enforcement conviction. Emma's case made it to news headlines, informing local hospitals of the disappearance. Investigators could only hope that if Emma had made it to the hospital to deliver her baby, nurses and doctors would come forward to confirm that she was safe. But unfortunately, no such leads have been received, leaving the family worrying about her well-being. They believe something treacherous may have happened, and they're calling for answers. The police have only classified the case as a missing person, given that no evidence of foul play has ever come about. But the Baum family believes otherwise, and until they hear something that confirms Emma is alive and well, they'll continue their search for answers. Number 4. Joni Knight recalls the day that Vaughn Callenback, her father, showed up at her front door. He'd driven all through the night from Lake Burton, Georgia, to her home in Franklin, North Carolina. His reason for the unexpected visit was that he wanted to pawn a firearm to his daughter's husband. Vaughn told them that he'd be depositing the money right into the bank the following day. Joni prepared some dinner for her father. He spent some hours on the road and was in need of a good warm meal, and after eating, Vaughn and his son-in-law exchanged money and the firearm, and he soon began preparing to leave. It was the later hours of the evening by now, and Joni thought that it was best that he not drive in the dark, and instead she suggested that he just spend the night. Vaughn made use of his daughter's spare facilities and slept over there that evening. By 8 a.m. the following day, on the 4th of July 2024, Joni woke up to find her father had already left. She thought that he must have realized that banks weren't open on the 4th of July. It's uncertain as to where Vaughn ended up that day, but the evening prior would be the last time that Joni would see or hear from him. A day later, when the banks reopened, someone reported seeing him leave the United Community Bank, located in Clayton, Georgia. That sighting would be the very last time that anyone would see the 77-year-old man, and Joni would only learn of this almost a week later. On the 13th of July, a harrowing phone call came through. It was from a half-sibling who lived near Vaughn, and he was in the process of notifying all family members that they hadn't seen him for several days. He was missing. Joni climbed in her car and made the lengthy drive to Lake Burton, reluctant to accept that her father was gone. When she arrived at the home, she would come across a disturbing sight. Vaughn's 7 dogs and dozens of chickens had been left behind, and none of them had been fed. It was clear that no one had been there in quite some time. Vaughn was not the kind of man who would abandon his animals. Something was wrong. That evening, Vaughn was reported missing, and soon another sinister detail would emerge. Some days earlier, unbeknownst to the family, Vaughn's truck had been discovered near the old Coleman River Road. Eerily, it had been banked down an embankment into a heavily wooded area. It was about 10 miles away from his residence. After learning of this discovery, the search for the missing man began, and they now had an area they could focus on. Initially, law enforcement conducted a hasty search, which was called out by family members. In the days to follow, though, the searches were more thorough. But Vaughn was nowhere to be seen. It was as though he had just vanished. Not knowing where her father is or what his condition is like is what's eating Joni alive. If he's no longer living, she at least wants to know where his body was and what sinister event could have led to this mystery. Vaughn has been described as a simple countryman. He didn't own a phone, and he would go weeks without communicating with family. Joni explained that her father was backwoods country and just wanted to be left alone with his dogs and his chickens. Number 3. All was quiet in Fredonia Township, Michigan on the 7th of September this year. It was 3 p.m. on a Sunday. Residents were taking the day to relax, clear their minds, or host family gatherings. In one particular household, though, things weren't as quiet as they should have been. In the home of 47-year-old Dale Higgley, something unfortunate was underway. He was there with his 6-year-old daughter, and they were spending Sunday together. Dale, though, suffered from epilepsy, and it was at 3 p.m. that a seizure would unexpectedly hit. It lasted only a few moments and occurred within view of his young daughter. Usually, it would take just a few minutes for him to come right back after the attack, but this time was different. Instead of resuming daily activities, Dale stepped out of his home and into the 15.5-mile road in J Drive South. He then headed off in an unknown direction on foot and disoriented, leaving his daughter behind. When family members returned to the home to find her there alone, they were told about the strange ordeal. Relatives thought that it was odd for him to wander off like that. It was undoubtedly out of character, and it was a feature that suggested something was wrong. So Dale was reported missing to the Michigan State Police, who, recognizing the urgency of this situation, sent out a helicopter. The craft hovered above the area where Dale was last seen and searched the area from above throughout the night. But the possibly disoriented man was nowhere to be found. The authorities then turned to the residents, asking them to review their home security cameras, doorbell footage, and trail cameras, hoping that one of them had captured the missing man and where he may have gone. But several weeks went by, and there was still no sighting of the missing man anywhere. There were no clues, no evidence, no tips, and no traces. Dale Higgley walked into the street in broad daylight and enigmatically vanished. Number 2. Since the 4th of July this year, smoke has engulfed the Arizona area. A lightning strike ignited a fire on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, producing what has since become known as the Grand Canyon's Dragon Bravo wildfire. The flames quickly consumed 140,000 acres of land, ultimately destroying the historic Grand Canyon Lodge and impacting the water systems of the national park. The disaster became so severe that the smoke created its own weather, causing severe air quality issues that posed a threat not only to wildlife, but also to hikers. Hikers such as Thomas Daniel Gibbs sought to embark on the challenging adventure, undeterred by the thick smoke that dominated the area. Not only did the 25-year-old Freehold, New Jersey resident decide to head out on a bike amid a disaster, but also opted to take the most challenging trail of the Grand Canyon. On the 22nd of July, Thomas headed off on Grandview Trail, which is known to be rugged, narrow, steep, and with a dangerous drop-off on one side. Water availability here is also not reliable. When family and friends failed to hear from the hiker for several days, they decided to report him missing. On the 28th of July, the search for Thomas commenced, and it didn't take long to find the first clue that he was still in the area. Parked in the Grandview Point parking lot on the canyon's south rim was the missing man's Tesla Cybertruck. Park officials had noticed it there for several days, but it was only after Thomas was reported missing that they made the connection between the two. Park rangers began the search for the missing hiker while fighting the flames that continued to spread, consuming everything in their path. Anything could have happened to Thomas. He could have lost his footing and slipped down the drop-off. Perhaps he ran out of water or became lost in the forested areas. He could have become a victim of smoke inhalation, but more disturbingly, he may not have made it onto the trail at all. No one had seen Thomas set foot onto the path. It was only assumed that he had because his car was in the parking lot. Something far more sinister could have occurred in this area. Officials have employed drones and search dogs, but to no avail. Thomas Daniel Gibbs remains missing. None of his belongings or any indication of his whereabouts has since surfaced, leaving behind a chilling mystery that may never be solved. Number 1. It was the evening of the 21st of August when Doris Strunk, a resident of Portland, Oregon, should have been in bed at the residential care facility that she was living in. But instead, she was in the process of orchestrating a peculiar mystery. That evening, she armed herself with a machete that she acquired from an unknown source. It wasn't known why she had it, nor what she was intending, but it needed to be confiscated nonetheless. The staff at the facility managed to get it from her grasp, seemingly without worry. The night resumed to normal for most of the individuals there, except for 63-year-old Doris, who was still laying out a puzzle of which she was the most important piece. The night drew on, and the following morning, on the 22nd of August, the report was made. It was 5:20 a.m. when one employee headed to the Portland Police Bureau and jotted down Doris Strunk's name on a missing person report. Finding the woman, who may be in danger, at risk to others or to herself, was absolutely crucial. Investigators discovered that Doris was often seen in the area of Northeast Halsey Street and Northeast 122nd Avenue. She would also frequently visit the Northeast Halsey and Northeast 114th Avenue areas. The missing woman was also known to frequent Hazelwood and wander around Parkrose Heights. Despite searching both areas, the police were unable to locate the missing woman. As the days drew on, loved ones were becoming increasingly panicked. Doris was suffering from several illnesses at the time and hadn't taken any of her medication in the week leading up to her vanishing. The missing woman was last seen wearing a black windbreaker with pink trim, which should have made her easier to spot. She also has long gray hair, which also sets her apart from the crowd. The events leading up to Doris's sudden disappearance were certainly strange, including the bizarre incident with the machete. The police have classified this case as endangered and missing. As fears continue to mount, the days drift by with seemingly no clues or indication as to her whereabouts. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.